I guess we'll do this second half of Rocco God Guy. Yeek. Yeek. Yeah, that's all I got to say is yeek. 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 I'm going to hit the button so it still plays. Yeah. Can't hear him though.
Fulfill those obligations as best you can. Then kill yourself, perhaps. Maybe a compromise.
Right. Now, and if, let's say there was somebody who lived 100 years ago that had my perspective and blah, 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 and they killed themselves, but they didn't stop anybody else from having babies and doing the same old thing, then right, that's how I got here, right? It's because nobody stopped people from continuing to have people. I mean, this is the truth of it. I can't control this circumstance. Somebody else creates the circumstance. I didn't bring myself into existence. Somebody else with a different ideology did. That's the problem. You're not offering a solution to that problem. You're just offering some perverse ridicule that doesn't accomplish anything but demonstrate that, yes, we're having to deal with people who are grotesquely ignorant and obnoxious and who will stoop to any kind of low to pervert the context of the conversation to attempt to make some sort of minor point, that somehow the fact that we aren't killing ourselves means that we really like life or that we somehow endorse life, even though we plainly state exactly why we don't like it and that we don't think somebody else has the right to impose it. And you're just going to run from that word imposition and pretend it doesn't take place when it plainly does. Because you suck.
Well, they're most likely to be taken care of in some way. You could be adopted and so forth. You could kill them.
Gotta reload it. I knew that was going to happen. Knew it. YouTube sucks. Starts from the beginning. Thank you, YouTube.
Fulfill those obligations as best you can. Kill yourself, perhaps. Maybe a compromise.
Yeah, fuck you.
Let's say you have children. Well, they're most likely to be taken care of in some way. You know, be adopted and so forth.
Yeah, so even minimize that. So let's say somebody did have a real circumstance that they needed to die. You're just going to, I mean, you're just being so insulting to the real world harm that exists. And just pretending it doesn't exist, that it's okay, no problem. Your kids will be adopted. Adopted by who? Some potty getting paid to adopt them? To pretend they love them?
You could kill them. You could euthanize them painlessly.
Well, obviously you can't do that, can we? Now, we should have a right to do that, right? I would think, right? You have some objection, some reason why people shouldn't have that right? You should explain it. What's it based on? Oh, yeah, that's right. Your opinion's more important than their opinion. And that's all it's based on. Your opinion is more important than their opinion, period. You don't have evidence or facts or rationality on your side. You just say, I think life is worth living, therefore people should be forced to live.
I don't have children. You might say, well, they'll be psychologically damaged by the pain of knowing their parents killed themselves and the loss and so forth.
Yeah, well, the point would be, too, is that the parents would be responsible for their creation. So if they had a getting out plan, they'd probably want to take their kids with them. It would be really stupid to say, yes, I think life is stupid, but I'll leave my kids here to suffer it anyway. Unless the kids were old enough to raise their hand and say, Mommy, I think life is super cool and I want to stay. Well, then okay. But doesn't that have to take place first, idiot? I mean, you're not even playing your little Weasley thought experiments. You won't even play them fair. I mean, you pull it out. Well, whatever. You're just so desperate. You're not only creating distractions of hopping like midgets on pogo sticks. You got to paint them purple on top of that. You're such a cheater.
Still not as much. That wouldn't be as much suffering as you would cause anyway by choosing to stay alive. So, I mean, and you're going to die anyway. So, I mean, you're going to die at some point, or they're going to die. So, why not do it now?
Why not? Why? You're asking people why put off something that's intrinsically unpleasant. Dying is not going to be fun. It's really hard to make it into fun. Okay? At best, it's a benign experience. But in practical reality, even if you take as much of the physical part, the negative part away as you possibly can, there's still a psychological queasiness connected with this act, this transition. It is like any other physical thing, okay? It's not something you go out and you just say, yeah, I'll take one of those. Yeah, I'll take one of those. Oh, yeah, gallbladder surgery? Sure, sign me up. No, they have intrinsic negative qualities to them because they require the destruction of your physical health. That's the way you die, is your health has to be, cease to be a relevant factor. You have to sustain it. You have to suppress it. You have to suppress the health of your physical engine. You have to force it. You have to suffocate it, like a car without a key. If there's no key to shut your car off, how do you shut your car off? How do you do it? You're going to have to suffocate it, or you're going to have to choke it, or you're going to have to use those kind of words. You're going to have to do something to the mechanics. You're going to have to break it in some way. And so the fact that people would be apprehensive about having to go through the breaking process, you can't understand that. You can't and on top of that, you can't understand that the subject of this conversation that people are attempting to have is about who is initiating the experiment, not about what the experiment is for the things that are already in it. It's whether the game, a new version of it, should be introduced. It's the introduction. It's the imposition that is the subject, and you just want to keep ignoring the subject so you can play a weaselly game.
Go out gracefully, as you guys often argue, the human is going to go extinct. Why not go out gracefully? I mean, you're going to go extinct. Why not go out gracefully now? Walk off a cliff. That's what.
Yeah, walk off a cliff. That's the best you can do. That's how you gracefully die, is walking off cliffs. Yeah, yeah, that's pretty funny. So, well, whatever. You're just an obnoxious asshole.
It's not that hard to kill yourself. Just walk off a cliff.
Oh, yeah, another famous line. It's not that hard for me to do dental work on you. I'll just take a hammer and knock your teeth out, right? I mean, you're just such an asshole. Just such an asshole.
Yeah, when you don't want to let grow old. You're going to grow old. You're going to have your kids taking care of you for years.
No, well, that's not a necessity of being alive. There's nothing about being alive that obligates you to say, well, I'm not going to do anything about getting old, and I'm not going to do anything about any of this stuff, and I'm not going to create any kind of environment or circumstances. I'm not taking care of my parents. They're old. I'm not taking care of them. All right, because they didn't require me to. They'd like me to, but I'm not going to do it. But anyway, it wouldn't matter anyway. It's not the point. The point is I can voluntarily choose not to be a burden on other people. I could voluntarily choose to say, well, I'm not going to let it get that bad where somebody's getting paid $10 an hour to wipe my ass. That's unacceptable. That kind of servitude I won't tolerate participating in. So you can do that whether you live or you don't live. You can make a decision about whether you're going to be a burden to others. That's another separate subject. But again, you don't want to deal with the real subject, which is, does anybody have a right to impose life? Do they have a right to impose risk? Do they have a right to invest somebody else's welfare in their judgment? They think life is worth living. They presume the thing they're imposing on it will think the same way. Do they have a right to do that, to presume that?
And as an anti-natalist, I mean, your ideal, if you're putting forward the ethical proposition that anti-natalism is wrong, and people are bound by that, it's not just a preference, or something you have.
Natalism is wrong, not anti-natalism.
Your ideal would be that everybody choose it, right? And that would be pretty nasty future, because the world would slowly disintegrate, the population.
Yeah, no, again, that's just a lie, a canard. There's nothing disintegratable about the fact of reducing population. It makes more resources available to more people. It's going to be infinitely comfortable going through the declining process. And the last ones left will have their choice, whether they decide to bail out or to just, how they gracefully exit. But there'll be no catastrophes created by the abundant choices that'll be available to people in societies that are declining in population. There's more housing available, more food available, more infrastructure generally available. I mean, it's all win. It's not a lose.
I think that even Benatar argues that it would be a pretty unpleasant future. So, I mean, even in your idea...
Yeah, I don't think he argues that, but whatever. I think you just made that up. I'd like to see the quote.
Your kids are going to, or your dependents or future people are going to have a horrible time of it.
Again, I don't make
right?
that... Make
you
that,
can't argue, well, I can't kill myself.
Make that a rational statement somehow. Again, describe exactly what the horror is of going from 7 billion people to 6 billion to 5 billion to 4 billion to 500 million to 200 million to 100. Explain to me exactly at one point in that transition things go all wacky horrible. Because they fucking goddamn don't.
In order to spare people suffering, because, by arguing for antinatalism, if you're successful, it's going to cause a lot of suffering. But you think, but there's a greater good, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Yeah,
well, and it's a false premise. It's not going to create a lot of suffering. That's not necessary in any way. And, the bottom line is that you're going for the long-term win. And the long-term win is that you create the whole billions and billions and billions of hours of torment and suffering that is absolutely for naught, for a need that doesn't need to exist. Again, define for me the need for the need to exist. Why would you create something called need? Why is there a point in creating need? Need doesn't exist on Mars right now. Are you really going to tell me that Mars is deprived and is in some sort of negative condition because need doesn't exist on Mars?
And for you guys, and there's quite a lot of you, substantial amount of you antinatalists, or omnicidalists, right? So you push a button to kill yourself and kill everyone else, if you could. So it seems a little silly to argue that you wouldn't kill yourself now because it might be difficult or something.
Well, again, you're just not getting it. Right? I mean, if killing yourself was just pressing some kind of nuke button, some kind of instantaneous flash it's all over button, then the easier you make it, the easier it is to get accomplished. And if doing that resolves all of the problem, it cleans up the entire mess, it makes it all go away, then you're more encouraged. But if you're leaving the mess behind, I mean, killing yourself knowing that the boat is going to sink and there's going to be screaming and yelling and you're not going to, it's automatic defeat. There's no winning in drowning first.
You wouldn't kill yourself, but you would kill yourself if you could press a button and take everyone with you.
You can't understand. You can't understand greater purposes. So you can't understand like a kamikaze pilot or something, right? Who lives a normal life, but then when he's called to service, he understands that this is the right thing to do. Or a soldier who jumps on a grenade to save his buddies. You can't understand that. It's beyond your comprehension why somebody would see a greater purpose in doing something under certain circumstances. In other circumstances, say, no, there's no point in doing it. No, you can understand. You just don't care to deal with anything real because you're just doing propaganda. Very good.
It's just itself. is unethical, you know, whereas having kids isn't. You know, so you're...
Yeah, you mean not having kids isn't. I don't know what you mean. But either way, suicide is, well, why is it anybody else's business? And then having kids is somebody else's business. It's the having. Right in the nature of having kids, you're involving yourself in somebody else's business. And if you're going to do that, then you ought to have a goddamn good reason. And if all you got for a good reason is a notion in your fucking head, that's not good enough.
Having a kid, you're not doing anything wrong, but suicide is a bad thing to do. But I mean, why shouldn't... I don't think suicide is unethical. Why shouldn't you be allowed to leave the world when you want? Why, you know, why should other people be selfish and make you stay around and make you cause years of suffering and make you use up all the, you know, the resources that are going to be used?
Yeah, well, it is quite a rational argument. Why waste it? That's exactly right. Why, at minimum, why waste resources on people who don't want to be here? When we know people die for the lack of 50 cents in this world. People die for a lack of 50 fucking cents a day in this world. People die for a lack of 50 cents a day in this fucking world. People die for a lack of 50 cents in this world today. Do you understand that, schlock brain? Okay, so all your talk about the moral crisis of this suicide issue is kind of bullshit in a world where people die for a lack of 50 fucking cents. So don't tell me how much you think life is worth living, how much you think it's worth preserving, or how much it should be invested in, or how much people should give a fuck about any of this fucking bullshit. Because quite obviously you don't give a fuck. Because you will allow people to die for the money it costs for your fucking t-shirts. Fuckhead.
The thousands of animals are going to die. You know? And the waste you're going to create, the medical services, who's going to take care of you for years when you're old? The thousands of dollars, and people are going to have to suffer for you to...
Well, again, like I said, that's not a precondition. You can live a good long life without creating any of those burdens. People lived 200 years ago to be 70 or 80 years old, and they didn't have modern technology and MRIs or any of that kind of shit. So it's quite possible to live a good long life without being a burden to society to keep you alive in your decrepiting, falling apart years. I mean, it's not an obligation to drag it out. I mean, you can just let yourself go.
Continue living, and you can just walk off a cliff.
Well, again, walk off a cliff. You can just go fucking get cancer and rot slowly and suffer horribly, you motherfucking cunt. Where the hell are you to tell other people what they should think about how they should die, about how they should do it? All right? It's none of your fucking business. I don't tell you how to have sex, moron. Maybe somebody should, but I don't bother with it. It's none of my fucking business, retard. All right? I mean, this is just so patronizing and insulting. I don't have to have your sensibilities. I don't have to have your preferences. I don't have to have your likes and dislikes. Okay? I could say maybe I just don't like the word cliff. It has a C in it. That's my fucking prerogative. It's my fucking business. It's my fucking life, and it's my fucking death. And you have no right to even no fucking opine on it, you motherfucking cunt. The subject of this conversation is whether assholes like you have a right to impose life on somebody else. To tell somebody else, I'm going to conduct an experiment. All right? And I'm going to do it based on a notion in my head that somehow you're going to enjoy this dopey experiment. You're going to be as dumb and as stupid and as small-minded and as petty as me and think this stupid, idiotic competition game is worth it. All right? That's where the subject here is, whether some asshole has a right to impose on somebody else based on simply a notion in their fucking head. Not a rational argument, not something intrinsically that could be argued intrinsically valuable, not a definite, for sure, positive thing to do. It's not the right thing to fucking do by obvious standards to impose life on somebody else. It's not. It's a risk equation. It's drawing straws for somebody else and then handing them the straw and saying tough fucking shit. You have no fucking right to do that, you fuck.
I mean, the argument was once made that if you don't have a child, it's one less meat eater in the world, right? One less meat eater. And why is meat eating bad? Because, according to the argument, it is also an unnecessary harm. Right? But even vegans and vegetarians will cause a significant, if not almost equal amount of harm.
Well, that's just moronic again. So it's another false premise. Where's your evidence for this equal amount of harm? It's intrinsically more harmful to raise sentient mammals for the purpose of their destruction. And any animals destroyed in crop production, you really don't understand how the production of, if we ate the food in its rawest form, it's 70 times more efficient. So that means we have to grow 70 times less food. 70 times less food. That means 70 times less combines. That means 70 times less fields getting ripped to pieces every season. That means all those little animals and all those little mammals that get torn to pieces will not get torn to pieces, you shithead. So it's intrinsically less harmful to eat vegetables than it is to eat animal flesh, you dumb, stupid, fucking cunt.
Their food has to be farmed and so forth. Many animals die and suffer. There's many resources used. So,
again, this is just a lie because you've heard these counter arguments. So this is just, you're just lying now. You're just ignoring the fact that you've heard the counter argument, which has clearly been made, that if we ate the raw vegetable matter, it's 70 times more efficient, and you have to grow 70 times less crops. You're going to ignore that fact, that absolute fucking fact, so you can just lie. Because you suck. Because you're a fucking liar.
Killing yourself, it's one less person who causes the same suffering or similar suffering as meat eaters.
Yeah, right. 50 to 70 times less suffering just on vegetarian alone. Then let's not go into all the other stuff that, again, anti-natalists would be changing about society. Things they would be voting for that won't happen if they're all dead. If they're dead, they can't vote for changes in policy. Retard.
So, I mean, you don't need to live, right? There's nothing that demands it.
Well, if there's going to be a war in 5 years, then it'd be good for me to still be here, so I could be on one side of the battlefield and I could run my pitchfork through your lousy, scurvy, scummy fucking neck. Yeah, that would be good reason enough alone for me to hang around, just in case we do have a good old civil war and we can make it about anything and everything. Once we pull the pitchforks, it doesn't really matter what we fucking run each other through for. So yeah, I'm all for it. I'm hanging around, fucker.
There's nothing that demands you have a child. I mean, you don't need it. The universe doesn't demand it. Right? And you might argue, well, I need to be around to...
Well, yeah, well, like I said, again, if they don't stop doing it, then somebody's going to have to be around to stop them. Because it's not going to stop until the Frankenstein monsters get together, go up to the castle, and explain to the... propose to the doctor an offer he cannot refuse. Okay? That's what essentially has to happen, is the Frankies have to just make it known to Dr. Frankenstein that the game's fucking over. All right? You're not going to keep playing the game, or we're going to stop you, fucker.
I mean, to argue for antinatalism, it's for the greater good. But not really. You can leave a record of your arguments and leave the world. I mean,
and that some of us are going to do that.
If people actually did it, it would become a news story, and antinatalism would become a big worldwide news story over it.
Yeah, and people have such plans. People have actually said these things, okay? So, yeah, maybe in 3 years we'll have a big, giant suicide convention and all fucking paint your ugly gob on our asses and say, yeah, fuck you, assholes, in some major way.
And, you know, suddenly millions of people will know about it. And of course, I don't want anybody to kill themselves, of course.
Oh, yeah, Mr. Glib. Yeah, you don't want anything. That's the whole problem. You don't want anything that has to do with taking responsibility for your own existence and explaining exactly why you have a right to impose on somebody else. Yeah. Explain that right.
I don't think I'd have the guts to do it myself. You know, possibly not.
The topic is antinatalism. Antinatalist. You got it right there. Okay, and the subject is people who think they have a right to produce babies, to perpetuate population, to impose life.
And of course, there's the emotional threshold. You know, you might argue. Well, no one can be asked to go beyond their emotional strength. But, sorry, that doesn't work either, because there are many people. You argue for antinatalism, that accept the greatest moral principle is the end of the...
Well, again, the argument isn't about people who are conducting their own lives and whether they live or die. The argument is whether somebody has a right to impose their judgment on somebody else, or impose their neuroses on somebody else, or impose their emotional nonsense on somebody else, to make decisions emotionally or mentally or through delusion or illusion that affects somebody else is the fucking point, shithead, and you're still not getting that. All right. If you want to, you know, whatever your fantasies are, you can have those. Those are yours to keep. If you keep them to yourself, but as soon as you use them as an excuse to impose on something else, well, then you've gone too far, fucker.
Human race, you know, you can't have kids. Other people have to die out. It's basically a horror to many people. You know, so you can't. So for some people...
Yeah, well, that's because of their deluded psychology, and they still, again, have to explain it. Whether they find it, you know, some people, oh, seatbelts are horrible. Or they could say a lot of things. They don't want to take a vaccine, right? We could have, well, what if polio was still around and there was a vaccine? And a bunch of people said, no, I'm not taking the vaccine. But we knew that the only way to really kill the disease for good, once and for all, to get it out, to annihilate it, is that everybody takes the vaccine. We as a society can make that judgment and say, yeah, everybody's taking the fucking vaccine. You can take the vaccine or you can live in quarantinia. Okay, those are your two choices. But you're not going to play this game. You're not going to undo all the good we're doing by saying you're not going to play. Fuck you. You're going to play or you're not going to play. Get me?
The thought of accepting antinatalism as the ethical principle is as bad as committing suicide. People themselves will actually die to protect.
Yeah, to protect their right to impose on others. Again, that would be okay with me if they have a rational fucking argument to defend it. They don't have that. They have no rational argument to justify why they should have a right to gamble with something else's welfare. They have no magic control mechanisms. They have no way to guarantee its fate. They have no way to offer a refund. They don't even offer a reasonable maintenance contract. They offer nothing. Okay? They just open the door to horror and risk and say, I'm assigning it to you. They point a finger at the little monster and say, tough fucking shit. That's not good enough. If they can't do better than that, they have no fucking right. And if they have to do it, if they need to do it, they just can't live without it, well then I guess they're going to have to fucking kill themselves.
The right to have kids, but they'll certainly die to protect their unborn. Even mothers will die to allow their kid to continue that.
Well, again, you're separating two subjects again. It's not about whether... Do you think somebody's going to jump in front of a car to save a sperm? I don't think so. Or a fetus? I don't think so. So this is another stupid argument. You're mixing subjects because you won't be fair to the goddamn subject. The subject isn't whether we are emotionally attached to people, to our lives, to the things in our lives, to even inanimate objects can have value to us. That's not the subject, shithead. The subject is whether people have a right to perform biological experiments on and introduce new consciousnesses that will be subjected to the outcome of the experiment. That's the fucking question, fuckhead.
Living, mothers would die in childbirth. It may be very rare, but it's...
Yeah, so what? People will die getting fucked by a horse. How does this have anything to do with anything? It has nothing to do with anything. The fact that people are assholes and idiots is not the subject of the fucking antinatalism, you dumb bastard.
There are people like that. So you can't argue that it's too hard, it's beyond some emotional threshold. Antinatalism is okay.
They have no obligation. Again, there's no obligation here. There's no obligation for you to be an antinatalist and to kill yourself. There's no obligation. You're suggesting they're under some sort of duress and they need to do it because they can't. The world won't stop, so they have to kill themselves. That's not the truth at all. It's completely upside down and backwards. They have every reason to live, to stop it. So this is an idiotic comparison. You're saying that there's people who are going to find it emotionally impossible to live without children. Well, their emotional problem is their emotional problem. Why are you projecting that onto an antinatalist and say he has some sort of emotional problem with existing? He doesn't have any emotional problem with existing. He has an intellectual and philosophical problem with creating. You can't get the difference? Creation and existence are two fucking different words, you moron.
We have to be a little heroic for it. But suicide's too much. No, that doesn't work. The degree of emotional strength it takes to follow through doesn't really matter. You can't arbitrarily... Who are you to decide where the...
It's decided by the fucking very point that the new thing is created. It's a new thing initiated, you dumb shit. You don't think there's different rules for what you subject to yourself? If you wanted to drive 1,000 miles an hour in your car, and there's nobody on the highway, and no chance that your car is going to fly into anybody's house, or no chance of anyone else getting harmed, do you think anybody would pass a law against it? You think anybody would give a fuck? No. People give a fuck because your behavior impacts other people. So it's this impact on the new sentience that's the fucking subject. That's why there's the change in standards. The standard changes because the new thing, like me, the new thing that got flown onto the fucking planet, was never through consent. There was no contract. I didn't sign up for playing the stupid, risk, moronic, chase your own asshole game. All right? And so you have no right to throw me into it and then say, well, how come you're not as dumb as the rest of us fucking idiotic morons? Oh, that's right, because I guess I didn't drink enough lead paint, you stupid fucks. I mean, I don't know what you assholes did to get this fucking stupid, but I obviously didn't do that.
The threshold is, if it's this amount of emotional suffering, it's okay, we can do that. But if it's this, for the suicide, we can't do that. I mean, that's nonsense. That's not logical. It's just an arbitrary distinction.
Well, again, who cares what kind of distinction it is if it's a personal thing and it's not has no effect on any substantive social issue involved. The subject is antinatalism. Again, you can't stay on the fucking subject. The subject is the right to create life.
And as I say, for many, antinatalism is just as big a horror as suicide. I'm probably going to be as popular as Jar Jar.
Yeah. So imposing life on something else is the same subject as resigning yourself to your own circumstance and mitigating with the proper response. Yeah. Recognizing when enough is enough.
Thanks for making this video. And many of you are going to argue, oh, it's a straw man, it's an attempted distraction, because he can't make any arguments against anti-natalism, so he has to try these cheap tactics, right? And
yeah, exactly. Yeah, let's hear this. Let's hear your wonderful, profound, and meaningful description of exactly how you're going to defend what was a bullshit argument made for bullshit motives.
It's just, a distraction and so forth. But no, I can make the arguments. I do make the arguments.
No, you didn't make any arguments about the subject of imposing life on other people and what qualifies a human being to do that, and the qualifications are the source of the rights. That's where you get a right from, is qualifications. That's how you get a driver's license, is because you qualify. What's the qualification? If you're going to say DNA, nature, well, that's just lame. That's just like saying God says so. That's bullshit.
I'm arguing here. You want to deal with this argument that you have your justification for why people shouldn't have children starts with the fact of the asymmetry. But the real reason is because it's a harm. It's the harm of coming into existence. Benatar's book isn't called Asymmetry, therefore antinatalism. It's called The Harm of Coming into Existence. Coming into existence is unnecessary. So you're making the argument, all right? And that's just, it doesn't even matter it doesn't matter. There's no horse put in front of the cart here. So it doesn't matter how you manipulate those circumstances. They're all truths, okay? You're opening the door to harm to satisfy no need that does need to exist. So there's no purpose beyond the purpose generated by your own stupid existence. So you're only serving a purpose that doesn't need to exist in the first place. Harm. And it's ethically wrong to do that. To cause unnecessary harm. Right? But if you start with that unnecessary harm, you reason forward, continuing to live is also, at least for the most part, and I think universally, an unnecessary harm. There's no need for it. There's no need whatsoever.
Well, again, it just really doesn't have anything to do with anything rational. You can't make rational arguments about the living process because we don't live rationally. We live subjectively and emotionally. And that's the truth. Now, if we're going to be philosophers and talk about what the truth is, what's the reality, not what we emotionally feel, those are two different things that people can do. They can talk about how they feel about something, or they can talk about how they think about something, or what they understand about something. And those two conversations will be distinctly different. And you should be able to understand that, you fucking cunt.
You do continue living, or at least continue living for long. And get your affairs in order, and off the cliff you go. So yeah, please.
Exactly how many years of life would you say that getting your things in order and off the cliff? I mean, exactly how did somebody exactly do that? I mean, it's really easy to just say this, but again, I mean, how weird a life does somebody have to live where they don't have entanglements that are there's just no way to unentangle? And so going over the cliff is going to pull some strings that are going to affect other people in ways they don't want to affect them. So it is just not a free choice. And for you to imply like it is, and like there's nothing rational about apprehension, it's just so fucking cuntishly stupid of you. And again, it's not about whether we should be addicted or not. I mean, whether we are addicted and what the consequences of addiction are. The subject is, should you make a new addict? That's the subject, shithead.
Any moral indignation or theories about what I want to? Because, I mean, the title of this video is not a suggestion, right? It's actually a question.
No, it isn't. It really isn't. It's an accusation. This video is nothing but an accusation. I mean, you know that.
Which of your interests justifies the harm you cause by continuing to live?
None of them have to. Again, like I say, we don't have to justify irrationally living. What has to be justified is irrational creation. You dumb, stupid shit. That's what anti-natalist is about. It's about creating life, not about living.
In other words, why don't you kill yourself?
Okay. Well, in other words, why don't you die of cancer, slow and hard as anybody ever has, suffer as much as a human can possibly suffer, because you deserve it, you obnoxious motherfucking cunt. You have no respect for the suffering of anybody else, and you have no respect for their right to think you're a preposterous idiot. And they do have that right, you fucking cunt. Okay? You have no right to assume that every living thing wants to exist, and you certainly have no right to impose the burdens on those little Frankensteins that roll down the hill into the dirty ditch. You have no right to discount their suffering because you got 10 little happy jerk-offs that came out the front door. Fucker. So, fuck you.